Hey guys, Josh here. I'm here with Jesse Munoz. We've done a few videos together. Good to see you again, Jesse.
And you, Josh?
So today we're going to talk about Sunburst. Like everyone is talking about Solarwinds compromise. So first of all, Jesse, tell us what it is.
Well, Sunburst is a nasty little vulnerability that was discovered due to the FireEye hack, right? So FireEye gets hacked. They use SolarWinds. They research their hack, find out that SolarWinds had been compromised, inform SolarWinds, and everybody kind of goes crazy because the Orion platform's pretty popular and widely used in large enterprise, government, and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. So what happened there? I know it's a supply chain attack. What does that even mean? Like when they're talking about a supply chain attack, you know, it's kind of gets thrown around. What exactly does that mean?
Well, generally speaking, you can think of it as say I want to attack Microsoft, and I know Microsoft uses this third-party company. So instead of attacking Microsoft directly, I'll attack this third-party company and use the patches that they provide to Microsoft as a means to transport my malware or backdoor into their environment. So it's kind of an easy way to backdoor yourself into other people's networks.
The scary part about this one is that once that got in there, that was we have no view of that. Once that got in there to SolarWinds Orion, that was shipped out to customers as good, as signed. It was all good, right?
Absolutely. And it's kind of one of the things a lot of people have said this is a kind of a nation state attack. The details that the attackers went to, things like building the compromised package straight into the SolarWinds product and being able to distribute it with their update process, building it into a directory that is recommended to be excluded on antivirus scans, using domains that don't inherently look suspicious. All of these things kind of lead to the sophistication of the attack and how well or how far the attackers really wanted to go to ensure that they weren't caught, at least not quickly.
Yeah, and I think we were talking before this call and we were prepping for it, and one of the interesting things that brought up is that this is almost like a company. When we say a nation state, it really is almost like a company that's developing these malwares and these attack vectors, because the level of sophistication that you just talked about is really, really high. And the evasion techniques is really high. So we're seeing, I think 2021 moving forward, a very different paradigm for what we have to be concerned about in cybersecurity.
Oh, absolutely. And these things do tend to get even worse when we start looking at how various countries start interacting politically, and how the economies in those countries are functioning, how trade agreements are working out. In a lot of cases, it's great to have international trade. In other cases, you may want to go ahead and steal some data and build it yourself versus buying from someone else. And that kind of espionage has been ongoing for a very long time. I mean, we've been kind of at that stage with the Russians for years, going all the way back through the Cold War, stealing and committing espionage against each other, and now we've taken that to kind of a whole new level.
Yeah, and where ExtraHop fits into this, and I want to go over the blog posts that we have on this because they're really good, is I think network detection response is finally getting a seat at the table. For a long time, it was that's a really great tool. That's something that I could see myself using. We believe, and I think we've proven, that network detection response is the ability to see everything without having to have logs or agents. So things like external connections for the domains that we're going to see in the blogs and the command and control, that really lends itself to be able to watch the wire and not just have agents or logs.
Absolutely. And we do one better using NDR, right? Because we're out of band. We're not something attackers are going to be able to easily identify within a customer network. It's going to be very hard to gain access to our systems to manipulate the data and erase, cover your footprints and erase tracks. So that kind of security is really paramount in these days of post-compromise.
I agree. In the post-compromise world, to be able to understand what happened, really work on your hygiene, be able to decrease that attack surface, which makes the detections fire more effectively. And one of the detections we're looking at here that's in our blog is command and control beaconing. Why was that relevant to the Sunburst attack?
Well, it was one of the early detectors that we found that did actually trigger before we knew specifically what was causing it. So this was a detection that we had that actually detected a 0-day, but it did so with a lower risk score because we didn't know what was causing it at the time. Now we have a specific detection built for Sunburst with a much higher risk score, so that our analysts that are using our product can really dive in and evaluate that attack specifically and understand what they're looking at without having to threat hunt specifically on kind of a larger data set.
Exactly. And there's kind of two sides to every coin, is that you're going to have detections, which is great. We're going to fire detections. We're going to catch some things. We're not going to catch other things. No one caught this, but we can catch some of the behavior associated with that. Then you have the threat hunting side of it, which we're really, really good about, that post-compromise. And here in the blog, we have the actual domains that were used in the attack as part of the IOCs.
Absolutely. And, this list is, at the time of this recording, pretty comprehensive. In terms of kind of the upstream sources that were being used for command and control. Now, there are other lists out there on the net with hundreds of algorithmically generated domain names that were used as part of this campaign, but they're not necessarily something that's easy to detect on. These are pretty straightforward. They're easy to detect on, and they're used in almost every instance of a known compromise associated with this attack.
Yep. Totally. And that's what's great about it, is you can look for a single query within ExtraHop and go back months and see, was I exposed? Did that communication occur? And that allows you to see, like, here's the canary in the coal mine to potentially of a bigger issue within my environment. And then here we have some scripts that customers can run and some ways to be able to leverage their ExtraHop system to be able to get some of that threat hunting intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we store different levels of data for different periods of time. And it's really important that if you don't necessarily, find the data you're looking for right up front by doing the easy threat hunting steps on the live data, that you take the time to go ahead and grab the script, run it, and make sure that, all of the data that we're storing in the background that isn't easily indexed and queryable to you is also checked for any kind of malicious behavior that might be indicative of a compromise.
Absolutely. And then I showed the first blog post, and the second blog post, Jesse, is really just another Python script that goes deeper and allows you to have a different output and really just provides more details. And I'm assuming from your side, there's going to be more of this content as this, compromise unfolds.
Yeah, absolutely. We spent quite a bit of time digging into what data was available related to this compromise. And the research team and the data team were able to sit down and put together a very large list of IP addresses that were associated with the attack. And one of the things that we noticed, which also lends itself to that level of sophistication that we spoke about earlier, is how rapidly the attackers were rotating the command and control IP addresses. Yeah. They were changing addresses. What we've seen is up to 17 times a day for their different command and control servers. So they were working overtime to ensure that it wasn't easy to backtrack, and that they were covering their tracks and avoiding any kind of easy detection capabilities. So, dodging the simple, hey, let me throw this IP address in my IDS system, and, dancing around that.
Yeah, and then you can even see by the DNS names. Like, I know that we were talking beforehand, I wouldn't think twice as something like, oh, those look normal out of the millions of transactions. So being able to go post-compromise and say, like, let me go find these using the scripts and the way of ExtraHop to interact really helps you do an assessment of what you've been exposed to.
Very much so. So one question I have for you, Josh, is what precautions or mitigations do you think our customers should be looking at, or the industry as a whole? And I know we've seen quite a few recommendations out there. What would you say to that?
We talked about this beforehand. This is such a loaded question, but there are obviously the basic stuff, upgrade Solarwinds to the most recent release. But one of the things that I think this is kind of a wake-up call is practice your hygiene, like we talked about beforehand, and doing your exercise. And with ExtraHop, that really means we've got a low bar. You don't have to know any crazy CLI or anything, but you can get in there and understand where are those areas where I have invalid passwords, where I have weak ciphers, where things have an attack surface of external connections. Really understand your environment using ExtraHop and validate your security posture. This is a wake-up call because nothing on the market that exists today would have caught this attack. Period. Stop. It's in the code that Solarwinds released out and certified as good to go. So we have to look for the breadcrumbs of those connections to external entities, really ensure our detection feed is good, and then do our hygiene to ensure that if I get compromised, that moving laterally or getting assets in my environment is really challenging.
Absolutely. And I would take that even one step further, because especially if you know you've been compromised, if you found evidence of this attack in your environment, I mean, as an attacker, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to look to set up additional methods of persistence within any environment, because I know eventually something is going to get caught, right? One mechanism of persistence will be found and shut down. So I'm always going to look to have one or more backups in my environment. So while you may, as an analyst, as a security operations person, you may clean up the known issues, you still need to consistently look for any breadcrumbs that may be resident in your system for months to come. One of the pieces of information that I thought was really interesting about this attack was that the backdoor was designed to check in over really long durations. It would wait days or weeks before calling back to central servers and checking in to allow access again. So if they're going to give you that much of a time frame between beaconing for the main backdoor, keep an eye on your systems for months to come, because other backdoors may take even longer to ping home.
Yep. No, absolutely. And in closing, I would say that this is not going to be the last of this scope. And so this is really going to be the new way of understanding what's happening in the environment. Appreciate your time, Jesse. This is good stuff.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.